Welcome back to another episode, a really special, unique one. You guys aren't going to believe this, but the woman that I have on for today's guest is actually somebody that I babysat when I was little. This was my first ever job. I don't know how old I was, Taylor, back
Eighth
then.
grade. I think you were going into freshman year because you were training for the soccer team. So you'd run to our house.
You remember that? Yeah, I was
Yes.
like, I'm gonna be a freshman, but I'm determined to make varsity. So I would run the 3.5 miles to your house and babysit you
Yep.
guys. I'd shower while you guys were still waking up. So, but now here we are in this totally different version, era of our lives and getting to connect in more ways than one. Guys, Taylor is now my personal trainer. If you follow me on Instagram, you've seen me shout out Taylor a lot for all my fit checks, and she has helped me already so much. And I'm so excited for the journey of partnering with her and really just getting to where she's been, but in my own unique way. I've been so inspired by this woman. I have seen her transformation, yeah, from childhood into the incredible woman that she is now, anchored, aligned in her purpose, just such deep waters. She's somebody that when I caught up with her, I told her, I was like, you can tell you've done the deep healing work. Um, you just have a vibe about you. But also the transformation of I was home visiting in Connecticut and I saw you that day on the track when you were
Yep.
starting your first week of 75 hard. And I've seen your actual physical transformation of health and fitness and wellness. And that's been unbelievably inspiring. So we'll get into all of it, but before I, get into the nitty-gritty, could you just introduce yourself, Taylor, a little bit about what you do?
Yeah. So hello, everyone. My name is Tayler Wohlleben, and I'm on T Rose Fit on Instagram. If you've seen Becky tag me, but I am a NASM certified nutrition coach. So that's the National Association of Sports Medicine. I am a certified nutrition coach. I'm a certified TRX trainer, a certified group fitness trainer. I'm pre and postnatal coaching and nutrition certified. And I'm spin certified as well. I just became a spin instructor at our gym. So I've kind of just gone all the way, all into fitness. But I do have a full time job outside of here, outside of my fitness world. So I work full time for the judicial branch for the state of Connecticut. I'm a wife. I'm a dog mom. I love to craft, and I like to review any coffee brands that I can review. That's been my newest thing. And I'm currently training for my second WBFF fitness bikini fitness competition.
That's so exciting. I feel like I know a lot of people in the fitness world that that's their only identity. And but I see you and you're very balanced and well-rounded. Like you're posting about, reading over the weekends and you take it slow. And so I just really appreciate the holistic, just
Mhm.
of who you are, who you've become. It's so exciting. So I'd love to start back actually in childhood because I'm curious, just growing up when it comes to health, wellness, fitness, what was like mirrored to you or messages that were ingrained, into
Yes.
you at a young age?
So I think that's so funny because my family's not an athletic family. I think I remember when you were running to our house to babysit, I was like, "You're running?" Like, no. I'm like, my dad makes me go outside like every day, and I just sit down and read outside because I don't actually want to do anything. But I did in like seventh and eighth grade, started getting really involved in track and field, and I actually went to states multiple times in high school for track and field in both class, and if anybody understands what this means, but the class L and class S, which are the bigger classes and smaller classes, because I switched high schools midway through. So I was athletic in high school, but my family was not in any way, shape, or form athletic based. Or nutrition wise, like we're Italian, so it's constantly like, oh, you want a glass of wine, or like, oh, like, can I offer you some cheese and some like very fatty meats? And that's kind of just how our family is. So it's been kind of breaking that own mold of what I grew up thinking and knowing, and really just having to be really comfortable walking a path alone because my family was not supportive, but just didn't necessarily understand or align with what I was doing. Like it just wasn't their journey, and that's totally fine. But I was like, well, this is working. So we're going to go right into it. But no, I was not raised to be athletic at all.
That's really cool. I didn't know that. I also didn't know you did track. What events did you go to states for?
I went to States for long jump, and I actually did a few relay races when I was in States. I think I did a indoor 200-meter relay 1 year in States.
Very cool. Didn't know that. Yeah, we have that in common.
Yeah.
I loved track. So tell us about the rock bottom. I know you've posted pictures online, but it's more than just rock bottom of how you look. Like I also know there was internal dialogue. I'm sure that came with that. So can you just bring us in to when you felt like you were at your lowest when it came to your health journey?
Yeah. So I had been pretty actively lifting for the last decade. I started lifting weights in college and I went for the exact same reasons that everybody goes because you want to look a little bit better. And it was cool to go to the gym. And then I got into powerlifting and I've done CrossFit. I've done any athletic thing in adulthood I've done at this point. But I was always super athletic, but I was like 22 and had no idea about nutrition and looked great. And then I met my now husband and I put on, the normal happy weight. We were going out to breweries, we were going out to dinner all the time, we were getting takeout every Sunday because it was fun and it was wholesome and it was a great way for us to get together and get to know each other. And it felt safe. So I was still actively working out and doing all those things. My workouts never changed throughout this entire process. I'm lifting about the same amount that I have been for the last 10 years. That's why I have so much muscle on my body because I've always lifted. But when we were preparing to go to Hawaii 2 years ago, I was like, all right, like I've got to figure out what's going on because my body's just not doing what it used to do. Like I'm not as lean as I was. And I was like, well, yeah, Taylor, you're not going to be as lean as you were at 22. Like, come on, that's not realistic. It is. It is realistic, but I was like, that's not realistic. Like, you got to figure something out. So I stopped drinking before I went to Hawaii because I was like, all right, that's always something even if it was just on the weekends, but that's always something that's easy calories for me to cut out. And I was like, all right, I'm going to stop drinking. And then I got back from Hawaii and I had a friend who finished 75 hard and she just looked amazing. And like the mental transformation that she was talking about that she had. And I was like, that's really cool. And I had been struggling not only with my weight, but with the relationship I had with my mom at the time. I haven't spoken to my mom in 2 years and it was so hard for me to break that toxic relationship because I we had done it this dance back and forth for years. Her mental health was just never going to improve, at least nothing that I could do to help improve it. And it was only pulling me down more. So in the midst of not talking to my mom, I was like, I'm going to commit to do something for myself for 75 days. So that's when I started my 75 hard journey. And that's when I ran into you and I was like, we have to do something because there needs to be some kind of change. I think my body just really needs to shift. And what I expected was the body shift, like the transformation of losing some weight and feeling better about myself. But I didn't necessarily expect this habitual mental transformation. And I think that they talk about that a lot in 75 Hard, but it was really the habit stacking that I got out of doing it was doing things for myself and doing things because I made a promise to myself and following through with that promise to myself. But it was the mental game that changed the most. And that was the biggest change that I got out of 75 Hard and ultimately led me to doing 2 rounds. I did in 2 years, I've done 2 rounds of 75 Hard completely.
Wow, Taylor, that's amazing. Yeah, I remember seeing you just running laps and I was like, you go, girl, because I had done it at that point. I did it when
Yes.
me and Sebastian were at our worst. That's kind of how I've always operated. Like the worst my marriage was crumbling or home life going down the drain, that's when I would do hard things like that
But
or
I think
push
we
in my
all look
career.
for that outlet, right? Like we're all like,
Hmm.
okay, well, like if this is too hard and this is not giving me joy, I'm gonna find another outlet. I'm gonna carve another outlet to give me joy. And that's very similar to like what I did. I'm struggling with my mom. So instead I'm going to put all of my effort into making myself better. Like it's just a shift of the energy and the shift of our focus for a minute because you can't focus on anything else. So might as well focus on something positive.
Exactly. So, yeah, I'm curious, what has been the transformation for you for people who don't know you and can't see you right now? Like, where are you at now? What is different in your mind and your body?
Sure. So overall, physically, I've lost about 60 pounds in the last 2 years sustainably. A 60-pound loss is a lot, but over the course of 2 years, it averages to just about a half a pound to a pound a week, which is what you want to lose sustainably. If anybody comes to you and tells you that they lost 30 pounds in 3 months, there's probably something wrong, and it's not, whatever they're doing is not going to be sustainable on the back end. But mentally, I really took a lot of because part of 75 Hard is reading nonfiction, 10 pages of a nonfiction book every day. And I started off reading Atomic Habits by Adam Grant. Was it Adam Grant? I might have that wrong. But I started reading Atomic Habits and I absolutely loved it. I took almost everything that was said in that book and I was like, these are really easy ways that I can change my life and better myself. And it talks about a lot about habit stacking and adding on to daily habits and being like, okay, so now that we've got you managed to be able to drink a gallon of water a day. You've got that down. Let's add another habit on top of that. So when you finish your gallon of water, you're going to make your tea before bed and start your bedtime routine. Like, and just start habit stacking and adding on to that. So I started learning how I could put more onto my plate without it feeling overwhelming. And I
Mm-hmm.
also learned at the same point about putting stuff on your plate, you can absolutely just say, my plate is as full as I'd want it to be right now. You don't
Mm-hmm.
always need to keep adding on to your plate and doing that.
Yeah, Sebastian did it first, and I remember seeing him do it and him not be like a psycho about it. Like it actually looked sustainable. It looked not as hard as it sounds at first. I was like, you're actually doing this and you're feeling good and at peace. And so it gave me the inspiration, like I could try this too. And for people who don't know what 75 hard is, it's 5 things a day, every day for 75 days. And one is 2 45-minute workouts. One has to be outdoors, rain or shine. And so we did it through January. That was interesting.
Mm-hmm. I've done it
Two,
through January too.
oh my gosh. And then two is no alcohol. Three is pick a diet, any diet, and stick to it. Four is 10 pages a day of a nonfiction book.
Mm-hmm.
And then five is how much water?
You have to drink a gallon of water a day, and you also have to take a photo of yourself every day, a progress
Oh,
photo.
so it was 6 things. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's right. So that's 75 hard. But yeah, it sounds like really intense. And I was like, no way in hell could I ever do that. And then I did it and I saw the transformation. That was the fittest I've ever been. And then I just haven't maintained it. So now working with you, I'm excited. Just the approach that you're taking with me is different than anything I'd ever tried before. I've never, ever, ever looked at, paid attention to macros and, how much
Mm-hmm.
protein. And so it's just a new level of awareness and mindfulness for me that at first I was afraid of doing that because I didn't want to become obsessive, or just swing to the other extreme of just an unhealthy relationship with my food. So, can you speak to that point? Because I think that's really common for a lot of people. It seems like there's this intuitive eating movement, and then tracking can kind of freak some people out.
Absolutely. And tracking isn't always necessarily for everybody, even in your plan. I was like, if you don't want to track, we don't have to, but it's going to be harder to track, to monitor your progress if we're not knowing exactly what's going into your body. So, for people who have issues with food and a bad relationship with food, I wouldn't necessarily recommend that they immediately jump feet first into macro tracking. So, we might take another approach similarly to how we're doing it with you, is where, okay, so for the first 2 weeks, all I want you to do is log what you ate. I don't want you to change anything about what you're eating. I just want you to slowly log what you're eating so we have a little bit more knowledge behind what you're doing. And I like the conversation we had earlier this week is that you're eating essentially in maintenance. Your weight hasn't fluctuated, but it's not going down the way that you want to. So that's great. What that tells us is what you're eating is enough to sustain the weight that you have now. If you wanted to go into a cut, we would have to take out some of that food. But for the first 2 weeks, we'll just track what that maintenance looks like, track what those calories naturally look like that you're actually consuming. We're not making up a number. We're actually looking at what you're consuming. Is that sustainable for you? Is it making you gain weight? Is it making you stay the same? Is it making you lose weight? And then we could slowly add on another habit where we just track protein and slowly add on to the until that food tracking doesn't feel overwhelming. Food tracking doesn't feel scary because we've already put in all of these other barriers like to create success and they haven't scared you yet. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like when you go and you get into a pool and unless you're a kid and you can and dive, but like you slowly dip your toe in and then we go into the next stair and we go into the next stair until your body is fully comfortable and your mind is fully comfortable wrapping your head around how to track and how to log food.
Yeah, it's like it's exposure therapy. You know, exposure therapy is a very common therapy for people who've been through trauma and let's say are terrified of spiders. Okay, we'll just give that example. And so you don't just like put a spider on their lap and hope that they get over it. You don't kick them into the pool, make them swim. It's like first let's just think about it and then go, think of another thought when it gets too much. And then maybe next time look at a picture and then go back to something that feels safe. So it's this constant titrating that is the healthy way to do anything new. I talk about this a lot on my show, but our nervous systems crave familiarity. They just
Mhm.
want familiarity, and our nervous systems don't know the difference between what's good for us and what's bad for us. It only knows what's familiar. So anything new, like when I was like, wait, I'm tracking macros, it felt dangerous at first just because
Mhm.
I'm like, I don't know, that's in the unknown. My nervous system is like, "Meh, meh." But just with the work that I've done and knowing my nervous system now, I had a mindset shift of like, no, let me just explore it, feel into it, see how it goes. And it's actually been only one day, right? Because we did the 2 weeks of just tracking calories, not macros or anything. But yesterday I was like, this is so exciting, actually. Like, I'm learning a whole new thing. It's turning on that part of my brain that's like, just kind of geeking out on learning something I've never learned before. And I'm like, oh, I can see how this is going to be really helpful. Like, I'm actually dialing in on some strategy instead of just eating less and hoping that works well. Cause I don't want to feel constricted or restricted either. But, something you and I have talked about a lot is how this change in your health has flooded into other areas. I'm curious with this transformation. Okay, you lost 60 pounds. That's amazing. You're the healthiest you've ever been. Your energy is higher. But what has it done for the relationships around you, or how has it flooded into other areas of your life?
Yeah, so I think I kind of just jumped really headfirst into I fell in love and I felt the best I ever felt in fitness. So I was like, well, let's really lean into this. Let's make not a career out of it, but let's make this profitable. Let's really own what I'm passionate about. And when you're, as you know, when you're passionate about something and you talk to other people about something you're passionate about, it's palpable. You can feel it and you can actually genuinely change lives. So my husband now tracks macros and he started doing that so he could support me and he's feeling better about himself. He's talking about his different goals. He's looking into potentially running a marathon next year. I'm like, yeah, that's great. Like, let's set fitness goals. Let's figure it out. Let's work backwards. How can we make this goal happen? My friends have now joined me, and I'm coaching one of my best friends for this upcoming competition. So she's joined me in that. I've made so many more friends that just align with now where my body feels comfortable. Because, like you talked about, when your body's comfortable, your body just knows what's familiar. At this point now, I know my body is so comfortable in this fitness world and doing these fitness things, and it's no longer comfortable binge drinking and partying on the weekends. It's no longer comfortable staying out until 11 o'clock at night. And I had to really take a hard look at all of those relationships around me. And they have naturally just, I found or let go with no hate or animosity, but found or let go of these new friendships and these old friendships and been able to rekindle some relationships with other people that I was like, hey, like at the time I wasn't open to receiving this, but I'm in a much better place now. I'm open to receiving your friendship or I'm not open to receiving your friendship. But just finding the people that really lift you up and really support you, not only in my marriage, because I think that that was the biggest one too, is when I started 75 hard, my husband didn't do 75 hard. He's never done 75 hard. It was just something that I was like, I want to do this. I want to do it for me. And it slowly started with, I'm going to start doing this fitness stuff for me. And again, when you're passionate about something and you really love something and you really like are expressive about it, people gravitate towards that. And my husband has gravitated towards that. And now he's not definitely not to the point that I am, which is totally fine. Everyone's journey is individual. But he's super on board with competing and super on board with food tracking and he understands the importance of it. And I think it really just gave him a different admiration for my dedication and my commitment to things. And I think it made him look at me as a wife and as a human just differently than whatever our role was before. And it was like, wow, you're doing this, you can do this, you can commit to this. It's inspiring.
That's so cool. Yeah. The friend you were referring to who's doing the competition, is that Haley?
No, it's a different friend, but I'm
Okay.
not coaching Haley. But Haley is one of my friends that I built throughout. this journey. And I knew her before either of us had joined our gym because we both go to the same gym. So I knew her before that. But she's an amazing human being just overall. And that's one of the best friends that I got out of this fitness journey was Haley, because she's just an amazing person.
Haley, guys, for those listening, if you've seen my Instagram, I had a mother-daughter photo shoot in the house that I grew up in with my mom before she moved down here, to me in an assisted living. Haley was the photographer for that session. And so I didn't know she knew Taylor. It was kind of like once she posted it on her social media, I realized, oh my gosh, Taylor's actually good friends with her. And I see them tagging each other in like their workout pictures at the gym all the time. But Haley's transformation has been phenomenal too. I can't remember the number, but it was at what, 70?
71 pounds.
Yeah, she's lost 71 pounds and she had like a
Yeah.
boudoir photo shoot recently, was feeling herself. She's doing some kind
Yeah.
of competition.
She's doing the competition that I'm doing as well. So she's in the transformation category, which is where you go and you show your transformation. And she's also competing in like the regular portion of the show as well.
That's so cool. Yeah, she's an
Oh, it's
incredible
amazing. And
human.
it's just so fun too. And like the girls and the relationships that you make in any kind of training like this, because it's so specific, like anybody who's going through a prep period for any kind of bikini fitness show, whether it be NPC, WBFF, any of the federations, it's such an individual experience and and a communal experience. Like if you've done a prep, like anyone be like, oh yeah, like I know exactly what that feels like. I get it.
Mm-hmm.
As much as it's everybody's individual journey, like the understanding of what everybody had to do to get to that stage, it's an admiration.
I can only imagine. Yeah, it's like only you guys understand what it means to get to that level when you're in that world. So the collective connections that you have, I mean, those are gonna transcend, past even when
Yep,
the competition is over, I imagine.
absolutely.
And it's so true what you're saying, just about when you heal or when you rise, your circle rises with you, especially if it's authentic passion. It is palpable. I love how you said that. And it can be the same in so many areas of life, Taylor. Like I tell my clients all the time in marriage, when you heal and when you rise, you're either going to call your husband up or you'll call him out. And, meaning a lot of women are afraid, like, can I do this work and save our marriage? If my
Mhm.
husband's not on board. Short answer, yes, but that's not the conclusion everyone, reaches at the end of this journey. However, I can guarantee that your relationship is not going to stay the same. You're going to change the toxic dance. It's going to shift either way, and you get to decide at the end if you love, if you're okay with how your husband has grown with you and want to stay together, or if it has become clear to you like, hey, I'm in a new place now and our values don't align and I'm not going to be dragged down anymore. But it's inspiring a lot of the time to those that are open to the inspiration whenever you make a shift like this, whether it's in a relationship or in your health. And I just think that's really, really powerful. And I've seen it in so many families, the power of just one woman making changes in her life, it permeating to those around her. And then generationally, I mean, the kids like are watching us. And so
Mhm.
talk about breaking generational trauma and changing patterns and how cool it is that you didn't have a blueprint to health and fitness and wellness even growing up, but you really were leaning into this. So I know your dogs and your cats are watching you in awe.
Yes. Yes, they are. But I think exactly what you said, where, your husband's either going to rise up and meet you or he's not. Those were still conversations that happened just in my fitness journey, because my life went from, yeah, we can stop and get food wherever we want. And, I'll eat whatever, like I'm fine with, not having set plans, to no, I'm not willing to go out to eat tonight because that doesn't align with my goals. And
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of people in relationships, dinners and meal times are where a lot of the conversations happen. Date nights are really important in relationships. That's where people feel connected so that way they don't feel left out. So we had to make a really big shift in our relationship to prioritize going on dates that didn't always involve food, because when you're in a prep, you can't just eat at whatever you want. You have to eat very specific things. And 99.9% of the time, they have to come directly from your kitchen because you know what went in it.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to make a very conscious effort to be like, well, we're going to prioritize like day dates. So we've done rock climbing, we've done painting pottery, we've done bowling, we have a candle making class scheduled in 2 weeks. So we had to really shift to make sure that I made sure that Matt didn't feel left out this prep, so that way we could really prioritize still focusing on our relationship because we're both busy people. On top of that, I have 2.5 jobs, he has 2 jobs, so we're just super busy people all the time, and we don't ever want to lose that piece.
Mm-hmm.
I think dates are always considered, let's go out and eat and drink. Which, if you look back notoriously, if you were eating and drinking with your husband, was that after you had a few drinks? Is that when the fight started? Because I can tell you our relationships calmed down.
So true. Yeah, girl. I love that you said as you made this lifestyle change, he rose enough to support you. He doesn't have to be doing it at the same exact level, but it was enough where it's still in alignment. And that's the thing. We don't want our partners to become exactly who we are. Like, we don't need another
No.
us.
No,
But
and he plays volleyball on his league. I will never touch a volleyball in my life. So he's on 2 different volleyball leagues. He loves it. He plays volleyball 2 nights a week with people I don't know that I've never met. And I'm like, that's great. I love that you have these friends out there, just as I have friends at the gym that he's never met. And so we just really get to be our own individual worlds now, and then come back together in the world that we created when we need to.
I'm curious because in our marriage, when I was getting deeper into healing, there was this almost ego threat from Sebastian that he couldn't verbalize at the time, but now he can express it really openly. He just felt like, oh, you think you're better than me, now that you're healing. And I'm curious if you guys have had to navigate any of that. Was there any kind of just fear, right? Like our partners can be afraid when we change sometimes. Again, the nervous system. It's like,
Mhm.
this is a new her. Is she going to leave me in the dust? Is she too good for me now? Was there any of that kind of stuff you had to navigate?
I think definitely. I've always been a strong, powerful, independent woman. I'm a lot of energy to try and harness. So I think Matt's always kind of just had to be
Oh,
like
I
casually,
know.
like,
I
oh, this
babysat
is my
you.
place. Yep. He's like, this is my place. It's over here. But the hardest part, I think, and I don't know that we necessarily ever fully dove into it together, but it was just like this mutual, like unsaid understanding. The hardest part was when I created my fitness Instagram, because my fitness Instagram, it's essentially marketing what my body is, because my goal with my fitness account was to create awareness about how nutrition can unlock all of your goals. Because had I known that, I could have just changed my diet and had the body that I wanted instead of, running 5 miles and doing all of these things, it would have changed a lot. But how you get people to understand that is you have to showcase the body changes that you've had. And when you're going through a prep and you're getting ready to be on stage, your stage bikini is the smallest piece of fabric that you'll ever own. It's the most expensive, smallest piece of fabric that you'll ever put on. So when you're doing these things and you're advertising your body, as I'm not going to say I was selling my body, but I was using my body to advertise for what I was selling. Um, I think that that's definitely hard because there's random people who are on that Instagram commenting. There's random people who I still don't know who saved these posts. Um, and I think that that was definitely something where my husband was like, well, you're posting like basically your entire body online, but like I don't get to see your body all the time like that. And I think that was kind of a definitely waters that we had to navigate. And there has been times where I've been like, hey, just a heads up, I'm about to post a bikini photo. Just want to give you a heads up. I'm not going to not post it, but you probably might want to know before you open your Instagram and it's just your wife half naked on the screen.
Yeah, I really appreciate you pulling back the curtain and just being that real and vulnerable about that because those are the kinds of conversations that one are so hard to have. So truly kudos to you guys both for having the courage to have the hard talks about stuff like that. And for you at the end of the day to know deep in your own gut that this is what I'm called to do to help people in this way. And I know it's taboo and triggering and I've thought through all of this, but like this is what I want to do. This is alignment for me. And so being able to communicate, I want to be tender to you, to your husband. I want to be considerate of you. Like I want to talk through this, but it's not going to at the end of the day have you hide yourself or,
Mhm.
squash this purpose that you're leaning into. And I did that personally for so many years. I see that a lot of the time. Women who just love their husbands so much, but are kind of in this fawn response, this deep, deep fear of displeasing their husband or him not being on board with whatever they want to pursue, and them end up feeling like really shriveled up and constricted and held back. And there's a certain word I'm looking for, but just not like shining her true light and able to really feel like I'm showing up fully authentically me because she's trying
Mhm.
to fit into a box that is going to appease her husband.
And I think I love to use a kind of like a marathon reference, and I've used this pretty frequently, but I think it speaks to any journey that anybody's on. They say like life's a marathon, not a sprint. That's been like the saying forever. But when you're in the middle of running a marathon, have you ever ran a marathon or a half
No,
marathon?
I've done a
Okay.
5K.
So my husband and I actually we ran a half marathon last year, but when you're running and you're in pacer groups, so if you're running any type of long race, there's usually somebody running with a pacer sign, and it tells you what your mile marker is. So if you're running a 9 minute mile, a 10 minute mile, an 8 minute mile, of those herds stay together in those groups, so that way they know that they're on the right pace, so they can kind of just like take their mind off of looking at their watch and they're in the pacer group. But anytime that you want to change your pace, there's going to be a period of time where you're running without a group. But if you know in the hearts of hearts, like I want to finish this race at a certain pace, you're going to have to separate from that group. And that's not saying that the people who were in your old pacer group aren't going to eventually meet up with you and be at your new pacer group. It's just they're not there yet. So
Wow.
there's that period of time when you're running into a different pacer group where you're completely running by yourself, and you have to question like, can I actually do this? Am I going to be able to keep up? Am I going to do this? And so you really have to know deep down in your heart of hearts, like, nope, I'm right. There's a reason why there's nobody with me right now. And I'm going to find my people, and the people who are going to rise with me are going to find like the same pace group too. It just might not be as fast as I'm going, or it might not be as slow as I'm going.
Wow, that's really powerful. And yeah, like you said, it doesn't always mean you don't find the same original people in the end.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because when I made that shift in my marriage, what you're describing, that was actually the thing that attracted he was attracted to me again because he saw for the first time she's like going at a pace that is aligned for her and in a direction that is aligned for her, when for so many years I was trying to fit and contort and bend to appease, what I thought was going to keep him happy to me, and that was the energy that was repelling him. So when he saw me go down a path that I was like, look, you may not follow me down here and that's terrifying as hell, but this is where I'm feeling led and I'm going to do it. He was like, "Oh, wow, that was attractive to him." He was like,
Mm-hmm.
independent woman who's not, she's communicating me. I'm not trying to leave you in the dust intentionally. I would love for you to come with me, but yeah, she's doing this in confidence. So that's a really powerful example, just an image that's really helpful.
I think it's
So,
helpful in any stage of life. Like you can translate it to your marriage, you can translate it to fitness, but like I always tell, I have a lot of friends who are getting out of their 20s, but that's what your early 20s are. It's everybody finding their pacer group. So and I'm sure I have not experienced other aspects of life. I just turned 30, but I'm sure that there's times in people's 30s and 40s where like you're settling down, or people are having grandkids, or people are doing all of these things. It's okay that your pacer group is shifting for
mm,
any phase of your life. It's okay to shift your pace. We're all running the same race. It's just not all at the same time.
it's so good, Taylor. I could talk to you for hours, and I know we will because yeah, I'm running in your pacer group right now. Going to be working with you
Yeah.
pretty consistently. But for people who, this is what I'll say as we land this plane. Okay. What I tell people all the time, because it's like this podcast, right? It's breakthroughs in your health, your wealth, your, parenting, purpose, relationships, spirituality, all these areas that make us holistically us, we would like breakthroughs in. But when people get overwhelmed by where do I start, I just ask them what feels like the biggest fire. What's calling to you the most? What feels like it's taking up the most time in your day as you think about it, ruminate about it, the most energy. If it's your health, start with that, and making that one change in one area is going to trickle into other areas. For me, it was my relationship. For others, it is the parenting. So, for people who are feeling like it's the health thing for me, that I need to get that under control first and foremost before I can even think about tending to other areas of my life, what practical steps do you have for those people?
I would pick up I would start journaling. I would, because I think we didn't touch on this, but I think journaling has been the biggest accountability holder for me, because you have to hold yourself accountable and you have to have a place that you can put your thoughts about it safely. And I think the more you write down what your goals are and the more you keep looking at your goals every single day when you're journaling them down, um, it helps hold you accountable. So even if you just started like in the contemplative stage of change and you're writing down in your journal and you're saying, I really want to focus on my fitness. I really want to focus on my fitness. Start just saying that over and over again. And then you'll be like, okay, so I really have to act on that. I really have to do that. And the best piece of advice I can say is that your food matters so much more than anything you're putting in for work as far as exercise or anything. So if you want to start anywhere, you got to start looking at what's in your pantry. You got to start looking at what kind of food you're eating. How many times are you eating out a week, a month? Try and limit your eating out to 3 times a month. Try and limit your drinking to 1 drink a week. Try and limit, and then you slowly pull it back and you slowly peel off all those layers. We're not going to jump right in and, like we said, shock our nervous system and be like, so I'm never going out to eat and I'm never drinking again. I'm only eating anything that's zero sugar. That's not going to be sustainable. But I would take a look at what's in your pantry, avoid processed foods, and focus on just eating whole food. So do a palm-sized amount of protein, a palm-sized amount of vegetables, and keep things that you can buy on the outside of the grocery store, not on the inside.
On the outside, not the inside. Interesting. I haven't heard that one, but makes sense. I'm tracking with you. So whole foods, real foods, clean foods,
Yep.
not the processed things that are not going to go bad after 4 years of sitting on the shelf
Correct.
in plastic.
As Yep, and there's nothing wrong with pasta. I'm not saying that there's something wrong with pasta, but the more you can get your carb sources from potatoes and vegetables and rice and things that are wholly made and wholly found, you're going to just feel better overall. I think that that would be the biggest start, is just start focusing on actual whole foods. And I know a lot of your clientele is not feeling comfortable in their bodies and not feeling safe in their bodies, but you need to start having the awareness of how your body feels, what's true hunger and what's a true craving. Are you actually looking for food, or you just normally eat at this time, so you're going to put food around? Are you grabbing that cookie because you walk by it, or do you actually want that cookie?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the awareness and the mindfulness. For people who want they're ready for a deeper plan, like me working with you, how can people work with you?
Sure. So if they're out of state and they're unable to, be in Connecticut and come to, I'm hired by Sessions Wellness Studio in Grizzled and Norwich. If you're in that area, in the Grizzled and Norwich area, come to Sessions, sign up. We are running a spring challenge. It starts March 30th. It's 8 weeks to a new you. You get an individualized plan. You get body scans that we can break down your body composition. So in body fat, skeletal muscle, you get access to over 90 classes a week in both studios that you could take full access to all of them. I could be your coach in some of them, and then my other amazing instructors are also there. And if you're out of state and you just want to reach out, you can follow my Instagram, send me a DM, and we can work individually one-on-one through that.
Awesome,
And my
Taylor.
Instagram is trosefit.
Yeah, I will include that in the show notes for sure. But thank you for coming on. This was so fun just to catch up with you and to see how much life has changed, to see how much both of us have changed. And I'm
I
very
know.
inspired by you.
I feel like we've lived so many different lives, Becky. I'm so inspired by you too. You're so, comparatively to the babysitter that I had, who was sitting on our toilet in the front when we were renovating. We had a fake toilet, or an old toilet we were getting rid of, and you were smiling at cars driving by.
And just playing monkey ball all the time.
Oh my
Nothing like
gosh.
me. You
Oh my,
remember it?
wait, and then yes, and you got us into watching country music videos.
Did I?
Yes, Whiskey Lullaby must have played like every single day, and you'd cry during it every time.
I don't remember that. That's hilarious, but I loved country in high school, so that makes sense. I also would watch Maury on your couch all the
Oh my
time.
gosh, yes. We did watch a lot of Maury, and we were like, yeah, we knew he wasn't the dad.
And guys, she's actually in the house that I used to babysit her in. She's taken over this house now that she grew up in as a little girl. And so even seeing her background, I'm like, wow, memories. So, anyways, girl, thanks for coming on. We'll definitely chat soon and appreciate your time.
Thank you, Becky.